Hi everyone! Welcome to my video about biological psychology. Today, we will learn about motor control. Let's get started. Organization of the nervous system. Here you can see on the picture on the right-hand side, we have the picture of brain, spinal cord, nerves here. Let's see what it is all about. Central nervous system, or CNS, is part of the nervous system that consists of brain and spinal cord. You can see brain and spinal cord here on the right-hand side. Brain and spinal cord are a part of the central nervous system, or CNS. Peripheral nervous system, or PNS, is part of the nervous system that is outside of the central nervous system, CNS. It's made up of the somatic nervous system and the autonomic nervous system. On the picture, you also see spinal cord. What is spinal cord? Spinal cord is a tube-like structure that runs from your brain to your lower back. It carries nerve signals that help you move and feel sensations. Cortical anatomy in motor control. Let's look at the picture here, as well as the explanation. The primary motor cortex is located in the frontal lobe. You can see here in the red color, primary motor cortex. What is the function? Primary motor cortex is for simple movements. For example, reaching out your hands or moving your hands or arms. Secondary motor cortex is located in front of the motor cortex. It's also located in the frontal lobe. Secondary motor cortex consists of supplementary motor area and premotor cortex. What is the function of secondary motor cortex? It's for planning and executing complex movements. For example, reaching out your hands to hold a cup. Basal ganglia. You can see basal ganglia in the middle of the brain. It's in the blue color here, dark blue color in the picture. The function of basal ganglia is for selecting movements for particular actions. For example, when I want to write something in my notebook, I would grab my pen first, and then I would write the fonts. I would write a word first. That is decided in my basal ganglia. Posterior parietal cortex. Posterior parietal cortex is located on the top of the brain here. You can see it's a little bit on the right-hand side. The right side of the primary motor cortex. Posterior parietal cortex is for planning movements, receiving input from all cortex areas and cerebellum, and then outputting directly to secondary motor cortex, where coherent movements are coded. How about cerebellum? Cerebellum is located on the bottom here, bottom right-hand side in the picture. It is for learning, control, and automation of complex movements, or for monitoring and correcting the relationship between different sensory modalities. For example, when you want to learn let's say piano. In the beginning, you may make some mistakes, but after a while, you get used to playing piano. You get used to move your fingers with the right movements and the right pressure as well, then that's the role of cerebellum, the automation. Neuromuscular junction. Neuromuscular junction is a synapse between a motor neuron and a muscle fiber. Action potential at a neuromuscular junction releases acetylcholine, or ACH. Acetylcholine opens voltage-gated sodium ion, here it's Na+, channels in the muscle membrane. This causes an action potential in the muscle. The muscle action potential releases calcium ions, or Ca++, calcium ions. Calcium ions causes actin and myosin filaments to slide over other, shortening the muscle. After the action potential, calcium ions is mopped up, all links are broken, and then the muscle fiber relaxes. Keywords. Agonist muscle is one of a group of muscles acting together to achieve a specific movement of a joint. Antagonist is the other way around. Antagonist is one of a group of muscles acting together to resist a specific movement of a joint. Flexor, a muscle that acts to bend a joint. Extensor, a muscle that acts to strengthen a joint. Extrafusal muscle fiber, the main contractile element making up skeletal muscles. You can see here on the picture on the left-hand side, there are spinal cord, antagonist muscle, extrafusal fiber, agonist muscle, intrafusal fibers with spindle, as well as the sensory body in dorsal root ganglion, and the two other spinal segments. Neuromuscular junction, we have talked about it. It's a synapse between a motor neuron and a muscle fiber. You can see here on the picture where neuromuscular junction is located. Actin is one of the proteins with myosin important in the muscle's fibrous contraction. Myosin is one of the proteins with actin important in the muscle's fibrous contraction. On the right-hand side, you can see a picture of the neuromuscular junction. Here you see the axon of motor junction, neuromuscular junction, myofibrils, capillary, muscle fiber, as well as presynaptic terminal, synaptic vesicles, synaptic cleft, postsynaptic membrane, mitochondrion, and sarcolemma. Keywords. Alpha motor neuron. It's the final stage in the motor pathway. Motor neurons have cell bodies in the spinal cord, and their axons project to muscle fibers. Motor unit is the set of muscle fibers and the single motor neuron that innervates them. Motor pool is the set of spinal motor neurons that innervate a single muscle. Tetanic contraction is the smooth contraction of a muscle fiber when individual twitches fuse during rapid stimulation. Intrafusal muscle fiber, a type of muscle fiber that contracts weakly and ensure that muscles spindles are at the correct length to detect muscle stretch. Muscle spindle. You can see here on the right-hand side, the muscle spindle is a proprioceptor, a sense organ that receives information from muscle that senses stretch and the speed of the stretch. When you stretch and feel the message that you are at the end point of your stretch, the spindle is sending a reflex arc signal to your spinal column, telling you not to stretch any further. The sense organ protects you from overstretching or stretching too fast and hurting yourself. That's the role of muscle spindle: stretch and speed of stretch. Here you can see the picture: gamma efferent fibers to intrafusal fibers, alpha motor neuron to extrafusal fibers, and then gamma efferent to fibers to intrafusal fibers. Electromyography, or EMG. Electromyography is the recording of electrical activity in muscle. Recordings are made with needle electrode inserted into the muscle. Muscle activity is measured using electrodes placed on the skin. What does it measure? The electrical activity in the muscle during rest and contraction of the muscle. Used in research and also to detect neuromuscular abnormalities. Key point summary. Each alpha neuron innervates extrafusal muscle fibers within a muscle. The nerve and associated muscle fibers form a motor unit. Activity within an alpha motor neuron releases acetylcholine at neuromuscular junctions, causing action potential in each muscle fiber, which produces a contractile twitch as actin and myosin molecules slide over each other to shorten the fiber. Muscle spindles detect stretching within a muscle. They also activate alpha motor neurons via a synapse in the spinal cord to produce a compensatory contraction in a simple negative feedback system. Remember, muscle spindles detect stretching within a muscle and also activate alpha motor neurons via a synapse in the spinal cord. Muscle spindles, wrapped around intrafusal muscle fibers, innervated by gamma motor neurons. Activity in gamma motor neurons causes the intrafusal fibers to contract to keep the same length as extrafusal fibers and detect any stretch away from this required length. Basal ganglia. It's important in selective movements required for a particular action. Excitatory pathways to the secondary motor cortex enable the required movements. Inhibitory pathways suppress the incompatible movements. So there are two roles here. Excitatory pathways to the secondary motor cortex enable the required movements, while the inhibitory pathways suppress the incompatible movements. Key point summary. Correct function depends on a proper balance between excitatory and inhibitory neurotransmitters. If it's not balanced, it leads to movement disorders, for example, Parkinson's and Huntington's disease. The posterior parietal cortex integrates signals from the sensory cortices to produce a forward plan of any intended movement. Includes a prediction of the sensory feedback that the movement will produce. Eye movements provide a simple example of forward planning. The visual world remains stable as the actual movement of the image matches the predicted movement. The parietal ridge region, PRR, specialized to produce the forward plans needed for complex reaching movements of the arm. That's it for today. Thank you for learning with me. See you next time.